Players Forum is your source for informative basketball talk about mentorship, education, and community. The ball is in your court. This is your Players Forum.
Well, let's get right into the topic.
Yes.
You actually grew up not even playing AAU or travel ball. Can you talk a little bit about your basketball upbringing?
Yeah, very interesting, right? So I started playing organized basketball at the age of 17.
Right.
My senior year in high school. Shout out to Rich Central. So AAU was just not a thought for me. Actually, I didn't really know what it was. But I had first heard of it, of course, because my point guard in high school, Jay Miles, legend, he played AAU ball at the time, and he played with some heavy hitters, Shannon Brown, Andre Iguodala. So he was a hitter, man, for sure. So that was the first time I had actually heard of it, and I mean, it is what it is, right?
Right. So, but now that you actually run a few programs, what would you say, now that you're on the inside, what would you say are like the main objectives to a good program?
Okay, so for one, a good program is going to help a kid develop the fundamentals of the game.
Talk about
Okay,
it.
I think it's important. It's number 1, 2, and 3 to me. That's your foundation. Kids need to understand the basics, whether that's the pivoting, footwork, all that kind of good stuff. Like that is number 1, 2, and 3 for sure. For sure.
Okay. And especially while they're, developing their motor skills and everything, you definitely instilling that. Okay. And so?
And then number 2, teaching the life skills.
Okay.
Social skills. That's building up the characteristics of a child that's trying to play the game. You want to make sure that they understand how to deal with adversity, building up their self-esteem. The game is fun, and there's a lot of ups and downs in the game. There's a lot of runs in the game, and it's just about how they are adjusting to that. Can they adapt to it emotionally? Because it's you just never know, man. Kids are kids, so you just don't know how they're going to react to things, and it's up to us as coaches and trainers to be able to explain to them and instill in them the right characteristics, the right fundamentals.
Right, because it's still as they're learning the perspective of playing the game. Yeah, all of that comes into play.
And then once you get that, then it's about reaching personal goals, team goals. We get to teach them how to put those things together without taking away from a team. With your own personal goals. Just developing. Period. Developing.
And then what about exposure and opportunity? I know that's got to be like a main objective as well.
Yes, that's number 3 for me for sure. Is exposure. Making sure that the program that you're involved in are in the right tournaments. It's all about being seen at every single level now. In this era, it's about being seen for high school, of course, college, and then the next level, professional. So just making sure you pick the right program that's involved in those things where, and this is just for the parents that, really want to see their kid get to the next level. There's parents that will invest, pretty good amounts of money, which I think is pretty good too, because it's good to invest $5,000 to $15,000 now than to be paying $20,000 and $30,000 a year every year for your kid that's not getting a college scholarship.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it just depends.
Okay.
It really depends.
Now, speaking from the parent's perspective, what do you think they can do better as parents to ensure that their child is getting, because if every program, had those 3 elements in it, we wouldn't be having this discussion. But obviously, this has been a conversation that's been had before about how programs are being ran today. And it's not just a one-sided thing. It's also, on the parent side as well. They have to be accountable. And so what do you think could be some negative effects if a parent is not in tune with the basketball community?
Yeah, some of those negative effects comes in when everyone starts to forget about the overall wellness of the child's development.
Right.
So we Nah, I'm not gonna say we because I'm not a parent yet.
Yeah,
but as
but
far
right.
as parents, they have the competitive nature too.
Right.
So you want to get out there, you want to win games, you want to do all these things, but we tend to forget that this whole process is about development. Again, talking about characteristics, how to react to things, physically with the game and fundamentals, all those things that we had mentioned earlier, they all coincide with each other. So we just can't forget what our main goal is, and that's the development of the child.
Right.
And
why does that happen? Is it because a lot of parents, honestly, I sit in the crowds and watch these games, and they're focused on their child, but a lot of them have no clue about the program they're involved in. They have no clue about the coaches and what they're actually, paying for.
Right.
And a lot of that has to do with the lack of information, I would think, right?
Yeah, the lack of information is exactly right. So, you want to ask questions. You want to ask a lot of questions, parents. Ask these coaches, what their philosophy is. Of course, their basketball philosophy and what's going to best fit for your child.
Okay.
So that's just going back into asking the coach's perspective on things, and then every coach doesn't have to have a pro basketball background to have a successful program, as long as they're a student of the game.
Right.
As long as they don't stop working,
Right.
they're a student of the game, then they should be able to answer those questions for you.
Right.
And kind of see if you guys work together to reach the potential of your kid.
So parents, make sure you ask questions, do your due diligence and your research to know what actual program is, best fitted for your child. And good point. Anything else? What else can become a problem, I guess, or a negative effect on that? Because you did, as far as like the development, as far as like rec ball, a lot of kids start off in rec ball.
Yes.
That's a good starting point. And then that's way the parent can also kind of understand, how basketball is played as well, right?
Yeah. So rec ball is a great introduction to the game, to the rules, as we mentioned before. And then it just gives the child understanding of what gameplay is like. But then after a while, once they outgrow the rec ball, it's not good to stay in rec ball too long if you're trying to really play. And then that's when you go into transition into a competitive program, So
okay.
that's the levels that we should go. That's the process we should go with.
Okay, so parents, take note. So from what I've seen or experienced, a lot of times I see parents, they have their child in like every single sport.
Yeah.
But that can potentially be problematic, right?
There's good keys to it. There's bad things to it. So I mean, when you're young, it's good to have your kid, in multiple sports, because they get to learn their body athletically. They get to choose what sport, that they like to do, that's fun for them, that they want to get up and go to every day. So I think it's good to start that way. But then once they get older and they start to develop and their body is developing, their mind has developed a lot more, then I prefer two sports. Okay. Just pick two that kind of coincide with each other. So for example, you got basketball and soccer is a great two good sports that you can work with, of course, because of the footwork and then agility. You can go basketball and track, core strength, hips is huge for kids. Kids, have their hips are locked. So, working with, the right track coach can really help develop them athletically. So
without them burning out.
And then that burnout stage is huge too. So you don't, and that's why I prefer to only do two sports.
Okay.
You do anything more than that, then that's gonna it's gonna really hurt your child in the long run, and then they're not gonna want to do any sport.
Right. And then for me, I've also noticed, parents that may have played the game or played, basketball at a higher level.
Yeah.
do you feel like some of the negative effects can be from the pressure of these parents having too much expectation for their child at such a young age?
Oh yes, absolutely, man. You know, a kid can only endure what you put in front of them. You know, you have to do it in increments, small increments at that. But yeah, the biggest thing that I've always seen is, you know, living through your child, your dream through your child.
Yeah, that is like, so common. Not even just in sports, but just in general.
Yeah, just in general. So, you know, and then that's a lot of pressure for a kid. Definitely if you got a parent or both parents that, you know, were successful in athletics, whether that was college or really at the next level, and became professional athletes. So, you know, you expect your child to be, you know, and following your footsteps. So, and carry on that legacy.
Right.
But then you also have some that may have not reached those goals and may want their kid to try to go and exceed them and play at the next level. So that can be very challenging for a kid, you know, at a young age.
Yeah, and it's totally different from supporting your child's interests or aspirations versus you know, pushing them or putting pressure on them to meet your personal expectation, because you know. So, okay, that's from the parents' side of things. What about like coaches and trainers within like programs?
Okay.
Where do you feel like they kind of fall short?
As far as coaches, trainers, I think the lack of the business aspect of things can kind of hurt a program. And what I mean by that is, you know, you got to have your business together. You know, you got to make sure that you have everything in order as far as a curriculum. You know, curriculum is big, you know, so parents ask your coach or trainer who you're dealing with, you know, what their curriculum consists of. You know, it's easy to talk about a basketball philosophy. Well, I believe that, you know, we work hard, we play hard, we work together, teamwork, and all of those things are great. But I think a great program has a great curriculum. You know, how are we getting there? Where are we starting? We're introing to this. Then we move to this stage. This is where we should be at this time of the year. You know, and that's what's going to really develop your child on both perspectives, where that's athletically developing, and then most importantly the IQ. You know,
those are that's why evaluations and stuff like that is important.
Yes, I do evals for every kid that comes into the program. You get to see that. So I give that example. I do a full court ball handling drill, of course, with a finish at the basket, and I think that tells it all for me. That tells it all for me, because I can sit back and just watch a kid, and then that tells me about their coordination, the skill level, where they should be, or where we can place them in the program. You know, if they're a developmental player, are they a practice player, or are they ready to go right away and just jump into the competitive?
So that comes with experience when you talk about, you know, coaches and trainers and stuff, having a background. You don't necessarily have to have played the game, but like you're saying, to be able to set up a curriculum and know your assessment, how you assessed a player, and be able to communicate that to a parent and say, hey, this is their starting point, this is what they need to work on, this is what I plan to implement within my curriculum, so you can see your child develop. I don't know a lot of programs, but some programs don't have, you know, that set up within their program.
No, not too many. And then I want to add something to that too. Parent coach conferences are extremely important to me. I know that's what we do in our program, where we talk and have that communication line open all the time. So we kind of took that from, you know, the schools. So, you know, you got your first semester, second semester, that kind of thing, where, you know, you get to talk about your child's progress. So that's the same thing that we do in our program, where we get to talk about your kid's progress, where our goals are personally for him or her, and how we can reach those. You know, where they can be, you know, in the next 2 years, if they are following along on just this line. So,
and then that leads into, you know, making sure that the program that you're involved in has a good reputation as well. I would think so.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, I wasn't gonna say, but a lot of times they can come off as like money grabs.
Yeah.
If the focus is not on the
Hey,
child.
a brother gotta eat, right? You know, so you can't
Brother
knock a
gotta
brother for his hustle and making his money.
Yeah.
And that's all good. But again, you want to have a good reputation because, you know, it just goes a long way. You know,
Yeah.
you want to be involved with a program that has connections with schools because it's about getting kids placed
Yeah.
and just really just putting kids in the best position to be successful.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sure a parent would appreciate that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so let's kind of change it up a bit. Now I know you run a couple of youth programs. I want to know, and I'm sure the listeners want to know how everything you've kind of talked about and mentioned, how it's kind of played out in your programs, because it's great to talk about what you should be doing and shouldn't be doing, but you're a real live example of you actually not only talking about it but living it. So talk a little bit about the impact you're having within the youth programs that you coach in.
Yes, for sure. So I think this just happened recently where I had a kid that was just like, "Hey, coach, how are you, man? Thanks so much." And I'm just like, "Okay, cool. You're welcome." I was like, "Man, he looks familiar," but I just, I couldn't really put two and two together. And then we started talking more, and he was just like, "Yeah, I made my high school team, just that and the third." And I just couldn't believe it. I said, "Oh, man, that is awesome." So one of the kids that I used to coach when he was like, 11, 12, something like that. But now he just finished his freshman year in high school, him and another kid that was in our program at the time. And those two guys made the high school team, but then there was a few kids that didn't. And it was kind of shocking because some of those kids, they develop early. Some kids that are really good at a young age, they're probably bigger and taller than some kids, at that time in their lives. But then there's two things that can happen. They can stop growing or just stop working. Right. And then the kid that approached me, he was just one of those, I call him the hard hat. He put the hard hat on every day and he puts his head down and he just works. So, I mean, he got what he deserved. He earned it. He was able to get it done. They had a really good year this year. And it was fulfilling for me. It was pretty dope.
Oh, being a part of a great program and being under a excellent coach.
Oh, thank you. No, it's all good. It's all good.
This podcast series is part of the Great Gain Athletics, Inc. organization and is brought to you in part by the creative producers at the Sultry Group. There's an art to connecting souls. Digital media content creation for the arts and souls.